Hello and welcome to the ProtoPod, the podcast for engineers, innovators, entrepreneurs, and trailblazers shaping the future. Here, we dive into the cutting-edge world of prototyping, aerospace, rapid manufacturing, mass customization, and beyond. I'm your host, Jordan Rose. In today's episode, I got to chat with Steve Lilley and Jim Flock. Steve Lilley is the president, CEO, and co-founder of ProtoCase Incorporated. Jim Flock is the chairman of the Cape Fear Manufacturing Partnership and the director of operations with HSM Machine Works. In today's episode, Steve and Jim discuss the manufacturing boom shaping Wilmington, North Carolina, and how Jim and his colleagues are working to improve the skilled labor force in the area, all in an effort to bring back manufacturing to the U.S. Now let's get into the episode. Welcome in, everyone. Thank you for joining me today, Jim and Steve. Steve is the president here at Protocase, Protospace MFG. Jim, you have a wide array of experience spanning 40 years, both in manufacturing as well as some community involvement. Would you like to start by maybe giving the listeners a brief history of your experience in manufacturing over the past 40 years?
Wow. Okay. Thank you, Jordan. Hello, everybody, and thank you for having me. My name is Jim Flock. I've been working in the aerospace industry for over 40 years now. I started out up on Long Island working in a small machine shop that we managed to grow into a 40-person facility and specializing in landing gear components for commercial jets, particularly Boeing, things like the 787, the 737, and 777. And I honed my skills up there. About 10 years ago, I was recruited to come down to North Carolina to come work at HSM Machine Works. They're an aerospace manufacturer specializing in landing gear, just coincidentally, which was a nice little segue for me. And over the last 10 years or so, I've been helping to run the business over here. We do a lot of parts here for the F-35 fighter jets. We do some really cool stuff, high complexity parts with very demanding configurations. And I have a good crew of people over here. And when I first came down here, we were doing cheap and dirty work. And over the last 10 years, we've managed to upskill our people that we're doing finished components now. We do after heat treat machining for our New York facility. And we've grown, our billing has grown more than double over the last 6 years. And it's a nice little place that we're working at over here. I'm very enthused about the future of our company and looking forward to seeing what else we can do. That's really just what we're touching on over here in terms of HSM, but we also have a few side projects that we work on, things like the Cape Fear Manufacturing Partnership, which is how I met Steve about 4 years ago now. A bunch of us got together and we all had typical problems. I had trouble finding people. Some of my colleagues and other businesses in the area had trouble finding help. And so we got together and we formed the Cape Fear Manufacturing Partnership. And from that time, we've grown to about 68 companies now, I believe, in the greater Wilmington area. And that's an organization that's focused on recruiting talent for our organizations, training talent for our organizations, and particularly one of the things that's a passion project for me is changing the dynamic about the manufacturing jobs available and opportunities available to people in this country.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'd love to take a tour of your facility next time I'm down in the area. Very interesting to me to be able to see some of the complex components that you talked about. I think you kind of hinted at maybe what some of the challenges have been in forming in the impetus to form the Cape Fear Manufacturing Partnership. Can you maybe explain to me what you've seen as the biggest change in manufacturing over the last 40 years? What are some of the new challenges that have arisen in your time in the industry?
It's been, I'd say, changes both for the good and maybe not so good in some ways. It's not your grandfather's old machine shop what you hear about. And that's one of the things that we're trying to get to people. It's not that cheap and dirty oh, you go in there, you sweat, you work for 30 years until you drop dead kind of deal and everything like that. It's from the time I was a little kid, I heard stay in school, stay in school, stay in school. We're taking all these manufacturing jobs and we're sending them overseas, and the U.S. is going to become a service-based economy. And this has been a societal movement over, I'd say, the last 80 years, much less 40, since the end of World War II, to move a lot of manufacturing overseas and change the focus of the economy in this country. And we've done a great job of doing that. But in the meantime, we've denigrated the manufacturing community. We've eliminated a lot of skills from workers in this country. And we've become dependent on entities that maybe we shouldn't be so dependent on. So that's one of the things that's really struck me over the last few years, that we need to start to change that conversation about manufacturing has become much more high tech in terms of what we're doing and with CNC machines, capabilities, what one worker is able to accomplish now, as opposed to what you could get out of a team of workers 40 years ago before the advent of CNCs really came along. And in the time I've been working in the industry, I see where we're able to be a lot more productive with a smaller staff, but at the same time, we're having trouble finding that staff because of the downplaying of manufacturing opportunities in this country. So those are a couple of things. It's kind of a double-edged sword. We're able to do more, but we need more skills.
Yeah, no, I can draw so many parallels to your challenges and what we face in our business as well as a mass custom manufacturer. Our priority for our customers is getting them their parts quickly and made to the specifications they need. And in order to do that, yes, there's lots of potential productivity available with the equipment we have. We have, incredibly advanced CNC equipment, laser equipment, bending equipment, all automated. But you need to have well-trained staff in order to operate it. And that has been something that we as a company, I know, have focused so heavily on, is structuring things such that they are trainable and putting an emphasis on training. So it feels good to know that we're on the right path and our challenges are shared with others. In terms of the solution, I guess, that you've developed with a number of others to solve this problem, the Cape Fear Manufacturing Partnership, are there specific initiatives that you might want to discuss that you guys have put together in order to solve these challenges?
Sure, we've created a couple task forces, and I mentioned the two main things that I mentioned in our focus is to recruit and train our teams, regardless of who they work for. So what I've been doing and what our group has been doing is we've been coordinating with our local community colleges. We have 3 great community colleges in our area: Cape Fear, Brunswick, and Southeastern. And they've all been very enthusiastic in receiving us and accommodating our needs. People who are familiar in the industry know that for a long time, when you've worked with community college and education systems, that generally they have a model where they'll come up with a program, they'll come knocking on my door and say, "Hey, Jim, we have this program, that we think would be viable and beneficial to you. And can we sign up a couple of your staff? You think you have anybody?" What we've done is change that and reverse that model, where we're getting together and we're creating curriculum, and I'm knocking on the door, or my colleague Mike Gawinski or one of my other colleagues is knocking on the door of the community college and saying, "Hey, we need this. Can you develop a program for this?" And give them the guidelines for that. And so we've reversed that dynamic. And in doing so, we've created more beneficial programs to our members, because now we're addressing specific needs. When I go and visit somebody at maybe ProtoCase or someplace like Mojo Tone or something, and say, "What do you guys need?" And they say, "Well, I need a skilled CNC machinist." Then we'll go to the community college, we'll go to Cape Fear, we'll go to Brunswick and say, "We'd like to create a program." And we did this a couple of years ago with Cape Fear, that we created a production technician program that we called, which gave people a good foundation in certain things in manufacturing where you have crossover, that you could come work in a machine shop like our place, or you could go work in a guitar manufacturer or a grill manufacturer, because you still have a lot of similar skills that require crossover. Things such as being able to measure parts, knowing how to use a pair of calipers or something like that. Or you mentioned that you guys do a lot of press brake work, bending and stuff like that, how to operate that machinery, how to know how to set those things up. So we've changed that dynamic. Another thing that we're doing is we have a lot of members engaged in outreach to the community, where we're talking and getting into into schools, elementary
Yeah.
schools, middle schools, high schools, and even to a lesser extent, community colleges, where we're basically telling people about the opportunities that are available to us. I'll go to a job fair or a career fair at one of the local middle schools, and we can do something. I like the ones in the evening best, because that's when you'll get the kids coming in with mom and dad. And I'm 64 years old. Kid doesn't want to talk to me. I'm a dinosaur. But I'll bring one of my staff members. I have one of my guys who works in my quality department, Sam. He's in his early 30s. He's got a mohawk. He walks around with these stupid t-shirts. And we'll go to these career fairs. And mom and dad will come up, and Sam will engage the kid. And he'll say, look at this piece of landing gear. Pick this up. You're holding $10,000 in your hand. This is what we have to do. And meanwhile, I'm talking to mom and dad and saying, some of my guys make $35 an hour, more than that. I do very well for myself. My management does very well for themselves. You have opportunity paths here, career paths here, that people are unaware of. And what is that after they leave our table, they finish going through the career fair, they're going out to dinner somewhere or something like that, and the mother or father is sitting there going, hey, did you talk to that guy with the mohawk over there? They do some really cool stuff there. You guys can, this might be something you want to consider doing for a living. So we're doing these programs like that so that we can train our current staff, but that we're also creating a pipeline of talent going forward and making people aware of what's going on in the community and the opportunities. You don't know how many people I've had tell me, I've driven past your building 1,000 times, and I always thought you had a warehouse. I had no idea what goes on.
Yeah,
I love to, if I could just jump in on that.
Go ahead,
There's so
Steve.
many things that Jim said that just resonate with me. But I think as you know, Jordan, our Protocase, Protospace recent expansion into the United States, into the Wilmington area. The work that Jim has done and paved the way through linkages with, in our case, the Cape Fear Community College. We've gone down there and we've begun our recruiting process. And we've actually been so successful off the get-go, hiring young, talented folks that are so keen to get out into the workforce. I think we've got 6 or 7 or 8 hires done now, and that's just the beginning as we get into this thing. And I just thank Jim for the work that he's done with the partnership, because it has really, really been beneficial to all of the members of the partnership and our company in particular. As I'm looking at this thing, there were a lot of reasons that why we chose Wilmington. And one of them was the fact that we knew that there was some really good stuff coming out of the community college system, but at the time I wasn't even aware of the work that the partnership was doing. And boy, oh boy, it's been hugely beneficial to us. And again, thank Jim for his work that he's done on with the partnership.
Well, thank you, Steve. I mean, that's the best testimonial I could possibly hear.
Yeah, that was you answered my question for me, Steve. That's what I was going to ask. Is if it sounds like this would have played a big part in the decision making to move forward with Wilmington. I empathize or sympathize a lot with Jim, your sentiments that the creation of excitement around manufacturing is incredibly important from the grassroots level as well. The development of programs is also a huge benefit, but it's interesting thinking about, my upbringing, my going through and choosing a career path, and manufacturing was really not anywhere near where I thought I would end up. I know you kind of alluded to that in your first comment that you kind of get this impression when you're going through the education system that you should be sitting behind a desk, and there's not a lot of glamour placed on manufacturing. But once you kind of get into it, you realize how exciting it is. I'm very happy with where I ended up. But 8 years ago when I started my career, I would not have thought that manufacturing would be such an incredible and exciting venture. And the ability, like you said, to hold something in your hands and say, this is going to do something spectacular. You're going to have something in your hands that's going to space or whatever. It's incredible. And I love that you guys are doing that work in the community. It's also, quite refreshing as well to hear that there's so much cooperation with your local education system to really fit the curriculum around what the needs of the community are, because ultimately that should be the goal of those institutions, is to provide employees that are successful when they enter the workforce. So Steve, obviously you touched on that being a big key decision maker in your decision to, you and Doug, your decisions to move an operation or start an operation for Protospace and Protocase in Wilmington. What does the future look like in Wilmington for Protospace and Protocase MFG, given that there is this very excessive talent pool based on the work that Jim and his colleagues have done?
Well, I think it's the opportunities right now are incredible. I think if you look at the political dynamic that's going on right now, or is about to hit us, there's some real interest in redeveloping the manufacturing space in the United States. So I think the fact that we made this decision over a year ago to open an office for both Protocase, Protospace, and our sister company, 45 Drives, in the United States was an absolutely brilliant move. What timing was absolutely perfect for us. And when I look at the whys behind it, first of all, we had a drive to do this based on customer needs. So a lot of conversations with customers, at least, and especially those in the aerospace and defense sector, the big customers that we have, really encouraging us to say our life gets a lot easier if you are a U.S. domiciled company, from a few different perspectives. So the decision to do it was very, very, very simple. And as we look forward, the opportunities are immense. I think we looked at it kind of a scaled approach where we would set up initially a reseller office for both Protocase and 45 Drives, and then move into some technical support and engineering design services capabilities. But with the interesting dynamic that we're seeing right now, we're aggressively moving toward a certain stage, especially on the 45 Drive side, where we manufacture large scale data storage servers, and particularly on an open source platform. There are some real opportunities for us there. We do a lot of work with the U.S. government, so really being encouraged to ramp up, that next phase, which is to bring in a manufacturing capability. So we're all over that one right now, and believe that the opportunities are quite immense for us. So really excited about that, where that's going to take us.
Jim, do you want to? Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to ask you, do you want to, that's, I think, a great answer, Steve, and really paints the picture of where Protocase and Protospace see ourselves in the Wilmington area over the next few years. Do you want to give us your thoughts on where you see Wilmington and the manufacturing industry in Wilmington growing over the next 10, 15, 20 years?
Well, wow, that's a lot of question there.
With Protospace being a big part of that, hopefully.
To your plan for how you're going forward. And that really makes sense to me. I like the way you have that gradual ramp up with things and stuff. And especially the idea of moving production down here with 45 drives, I think is an exciting development for your company and hopefully for the area over here. You had mentioned the changing political dynamic, let's call it. Um, Honestly, manufacturing in North Carolina has been a priority with the government down here for years now. North Carolina is noted as the number one state for manufacturing in the country. It's been
Oh, wow.
selected at the top one or two over the last 4 or 5 years now. They've been very aggressive in pursuing manufacturing companies, in particular in this area. Um, Brunswick County has announced a half a dozen in 2024 manufacturing-based companies moving into the area over here. The greater Wilmington, even down to Myrtle Beach area, I would call it, is growing great guns. This is one of the most desirable places to live in the country, and more people are moving down here. More and more companies are moving down here. I see great growth going forward here, and I don't think that's going to change. I'm excited by the manufacturing companies that are moving here because those in particular offer a lot of people in our community opportunities to be able to get good livings and make well-paying and long-lasting careers. And I see that with companies such as mine growing down here, your company, and some others that I'm not at liberty to mention. I apologize, but it's not going to change. The next 10 to 15 years, I eventually think that people aren't going to be talking about Wilmington or Myrtle Beach. They're going to be talking about the greater Wilmington, Myrtle Beach metropolitan area. That's not going to change. This is one of the fastest growing regions in the entire country. Brunswick County, I believe, is the fastest growing county in North Carolina and one of the fastest in the country. And that's not going away. So it's incumbent on us, I think, as leaders in our community to be able to identify these things and set some policies that are going to be important going forward that will help to drive the economy and attract more and more people here. We need to do stuff to attract the younger workers and to get and retain our younger citizens in this area too. And I think this is a good way to do it. And I think it's going to be a very exciting time going forward.
It is exciting, and I think well in part due to the work that you've put in. So thank you for laying the groundwork that allow us as a company to move in and prosper. So I guess in closing, what advice would you give to somebody maybe looking to enter the manufacturing industry, or somebody who is currently just getting started in manufacturing? What advice would you give somebody like that?
One of the things that I've heard a great deal, especially on the education front, is pursue your passion. And I think that's important. But one of the things that I want people to consider as well is consider what you're good at. Okay. I know people who love, one young lady in particular, a family member, who loved photography. And she went to school to become a photographer. And she's very passionate about it, and she's pretty good at it, but not good enough to make a real living at it. And so it's one of those things where it strikes me that if you look at something that you like to do now, you need to tie that in with something that you're good at. And because you might like it now, one of my guys may say, oh, I want to make parts, and I want to push the button on the machine. And he's doing that when he's 22 years old. But by the time he's 40 years old and he's sitting there going, man, this is a dead-end job. I'm just sitting here pushing that button. Well, if maybe he had pursued something that they were good at and they had a little more aptitude for, that you can take that and you can parlay that into more of a career. You can move up the corporate ladder. So that I can take one of my guys who has some, let's say, some graphic skills, and that he can become a programmer or an engineer, a design engineer or something like that. So my advice is to find something that you have your skills at and try to place your passions in that area. I think that's very important because 30, 40 years from now, you're good at your job. You're going to be enthused about waking up in the morning and going to work and everything, rather than going, oh man, I got to go back to that place. It really makes it dynamic. It makes for a happy worker is a productive worker.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I think that go ahead, Steve.
I agree. agree 100% on that, Jim. And I just think I loved your comment earlier. This is not your grandfather's machine shop anymore. and Jordan, to your point earlier, where we talked a little bit about mass custom and the process that we use to take what was traditionally jobs, machining jobs that would take weeks or months to go through the floor, and that brings, it's boring, right? It's not exciting, it's not fast, it's not dynamic. But you take the ideals of mass custom, and all of a sudden we're turning orders around, Jordan, as you know, 2 to 3 days. So you work on a project one day, and you're working on something different the next. And it's because of the automation, the mass custom process, and just the efficiencies that come with that. It's fast, it's dynamic, and it's fun, and it makes for a really interesting career. So I think it's a big change. I think of the commercial that used to be on Buick. What was it? It's not your father's. This isn't your father's Buick anymore. Things are changing, right? And they're much faster and they're much more dynamic. So it's it's an exciting time in manufacturing right now.
Yeah,
100% agree.
Yeah, well said, Steve. And the other piece on that too is to Jim's point about that boredom. If you don't change what you're doing, if you don't have a path forward to grow. I think that's something else that we pride ourselves on here, and something that we've done a fairly good job of is providing that progression for people. And we have a number of CNC programmers working in our facility right now who started as operators, started as folks that maybe had lots of aptitude but didn't have the experience or the training. And I pride myself, and I think we as a company pride ourselves on giving people the opportunity to grow and learn and further themselves to whatever extent they're willing to, because that's what makes people happy is the self-fulfillment and actualization of their goals. So I couldn't agree more on that.
Jordan, you're a perfect example of that.
Thank you, Steve.
Jordan, I know. I'm sorry if I could just throw in one more thing there to your point, Jordan. I had a staff member over here. We were doing a part a couple of years ago. A new hydraulic cylinder was the first piece we were doing over there. It was a high pressure job, very complex.
Yep.
High heat treat material with very close tolerances and everything. And my company in New York had a courier come down here to pick up the part the day we still had it on the machine. 9 o'clock at night, me and this kid Austin are working on the machine, finishing things up. We finished the job up, and I'm talking a hydraulic cylinder that's 4 feet long. It's got a hole in it 3 feet inside with a mirror finish on there, all sorts of little probes and things sticking out of it. Extremely complex part. And he goes to put it in the box and clean it up, and I said, stop, just take a second, take a look at this part, okay? Because there aren't 100 people in the entire world that can make this part from start to finish. And you just see his face light up with that realization and everything.
Yeah,
and he has that enthusiasm to this day.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thrill, right? Those are the wins, and that's what makes manufacturing special in my eyes. And great way to end it. Thank you both for joining us. Jim, I would like to invite myself over to your facility next time I'm in the area, if you'd be so willing to have me. Is that a yes?
Absolutely, Jordan.
Great, thank you. And Steve, thank you for coming in and providing lots of great insight on how Protocase and Protospace fits into the Wilmington manufacturing ecosystem. So thank you both for your time.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Thanks, Jim. Great to see you again.
Thank you, Steve. Good to see you. Thank you, Jordan. I really appreciate you guys having me and listening to me for a few minutes.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.